You are listening to the Bring Joy Forward podcast. Conversations to explore, heal, and grow. You can find us on bringjoyforward.com and join us in our community group on Facebook. We now take you to the episode. Thank you for joining us.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast. My name is Stacy Piccolo, founder of Mind Movement Coaching and Empowerment Coach, and I'm joined by Ramona Crabtree-Falkner of Authentic Life Journey.
Hi, so happy to be here.
Yes, me too. What are we talking about today, Ramona?
So today we are going to talk about I Plan, God Laughs.
Yeah, let's see how that goes, because, probably not according to our plans. But
all right. So,
okay.
Stacy and I hopped into a call a few weeks ago and just started talking about this idea about how when we make these grand plans and then they go sideways. And yeah. and just really diving into understanding maybe what creates that a little bit, and then how we could activate our paths forward with a little more intention and mindfulness and alignment. So let's dive into that.
Okay, yeah. Well, I know I make some really big plans sometimes, and I think they're going to go just the way, I think they should. And that is not at all what happens. I've planned many things in my life. I thought I was going to be a psychologist. I thought that was, but then things happened that really just did not lead up to that with the end result. I've planned many things in my life, and no matter how rigidly I held on to what I believed should happen, when it didn't, the more I kind of cracked under it. It was just more devastating because I was gripping onto what I wanted so badly.
I can relate. I definitely have been in this industry for 20 years, and there have been so many different versions of what it is that I'm doing going on over that 20 years, because I've continued to evolve over that time. And some of those times I was really swinging for the fences, and then they didn't quite work out. And I'm going to say this, I'm grateful they didn't.
Ooh.
Because had some of those things worked out, it wouldn't be where I am now. Right. And some of the things that imploded and didn't work out were honestly, in hindsight, I'm like, oh, wow, good thing I walked away from that, because that would have not been a good situation for me. So when we say I Plan, God Laughs, we mean that, we're manning ourselves into something versus intending and doing the divine work and the sacred work to co-create with the divine.
Right.
So
right.
There's duality in everything, right? And one of the things that we have talked about a lot is yang energy, right? So yang, yang, yang. And that's typically where this creation that we're talking about happens, is when we're like, okay, I'm going to do this big thing. But if we forget to sit down and quiet ourselves and get into the yin meditation and the journaling and the things that we do naturally in other areas of our life, then whatever we're moving our energy towards may not manifest, because it's manifesting from a place of force. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So whatever our intentions are, if we're forcing them or willing them into existence, then we are, planning and God is laughing. We're forcing it, we're reaching for it. It's not what's meant to be, but we're trying to make it be, And also, I think, why don't we just talk a little bit more about this yang energy? Because I feel like it can be balanced sometimes and completely imbalanced other times. So what do you think about that?
Absolutely. I know that for me, when it's out of balance, how I've seen it in myself and in my clients is that word that you use, force, right? Mm-hmm. So there is this this has to happen. There's rigidness attached to it. For me, it feels like I'm trying to push a boulder up a hill, which is really in opposition of divine flow.
Absolutely.
Versus when it's aligned action. So aligned action is I'm doing that quieting time. I am tapping into my intuition instead of just intellectualizing the process. I just recently had a situation that I'm still processing right now, where I entered it from a very yang place, because I was like, okay, this is, and now mind you, the inspiration was divine,
Right.
but the actions that I took behind it were not.
Right.
So I hit a lot of roads of suffering for the last 4.5 months, because I was yanging, like
Yanging along.
it through, instead of sitting back and really observing and intuiting the path forward. Now, that being said, I did finally, get knocked upside the head enough times by the divine to go, okay, I think I need a little reset.
Right.
And for me, unfortunately, that shows up as an explosion of some sort.
Same. Yes, because we're yanging so hard, we need to get hit in order to stop. It's not like, our will is strong sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and yang energy is it's fiery, right? So it's fueled with passion, it's fueled with desire, it's fueled with the dream that is born in that sacral chakra. We want to bring it into the earth. We want to birth it.
Yes.
But if we're really pushing it,
right,
instead of flowing with it. And so I don't know about you, but I definitely have noticed in my own life that when I'm in divine flow, it feels very easy. The next natural step just happens. And even in those times when I'm not doing it that way, I'm still getting some of that. It's just not the forerunner. It's in the background.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have these beautiful inspirations and intentions, and it's like, this beautiful flow. But sometimes it's like there's different degrees of balance of masculine energy, I think. So depending on how imbalanced the masculine energy is, it kind of takes over the flow, and then you're forcing, like you said. And if it was like balanced masculine energy, balanced yang energy, that's more of like a conscious kind of like the flow of the feminine supports that type of masculine very well. And that's when like really amazing things can happen. But I was kind of thinking, like, one example is I can remember, like, in the long past when I was looking for a job, like, regular job, I was looking, and I had maybe a few opportunities, but I was like reaching for them and like, I want this one. I want to do this, and I want to work for these people, and, I don't care. I'm just gonna, so I was really kind of forcing it to happen. And as the years went on, I really noticed the more you lean back and the more you're just in the flow, doing the things the way you want to do them, setting your intentions and living by your intentions, we actually don't have to reach out and grab. Instead, the right one will find its way to us in the right timing, Yeah.
Divine timing is the key to that for sure.
Right.
I know that when I have had to walk away from commitments that I've made because I just wanted them so badly, that there's suffering that gets to be processed.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how can you tell when something that you're doing is a divine masculine movement, or just a masculine yang manning it movement?
Right.
And for me, being a hypersensitive person, it shows up in me, fighting. It shows up in me feeling like I'm not smart enough, or I don't know what I'm doing, or that I'm lost, or I don't understand. It shows up in me having panic attacks and a lot of anxiety, because the thing is that I can't ignore how I'm feeling. It's all right there. It's very easy for me to access it because of that hypersensitivity.
Yeah.
The issue is that if I'm not doing the work to quiet myself, then it can take over.
Exactly.
It's literally like a little monster. It's like, I'm going to eat. You're giving me I had a client one time call it an ego snack. You're giving me an ego snack.
Ooh, yeah, I like that. Yes. So
I'm like, yeah, totally having an ego snack right now.
Right. So if we're not working kind of, at least if we don't have the awareness that we need to work at this and sort of nurture the feminine so that the ego snacks aren't like, tempting, then what would you do? What's something that you might do to quiet this down, remain more in the flow, and avoid this type of energy taking over?
I mean, the very first thing that I always do whenever I've gone completely off the rails is I start pulling cards.
Okay, nice.
So, these cards, these divination tools that we have access to are a really good way whenever there's so much noise going on in the mind,
right,
to be able to pull ourselves back in and say, okay, I can't hear right now because I'm too noisy.
yes,
I'm going to place my hands and my energy into this deck of cards, and I'm going to let the cards show me where I need to give attention.
cool.
And then oftentimes for me, cards fly out of the deck almost instantaneous, especially if I'm on that far end of the spectrum where I've been chomping away on my ego snacks and getting a full belly. Like, I'm like, okay, I need some help. And I just start shuffling the cards. I just ask for help, and the cards just fall out. This happened about 3 weeks ago when I finally turned the corner with the situation that I was working with. And I'm telling you, every single card that I pulled for 4 days, it was like, yes, yes, yes. This is what I need to be here. And really, it just brought me back to center.
Yep.
So that I could start setting up more appropriate practices when I sit down to the situation. Because part of the issue that I'm having is that I'm having to learn something that is so foreign to me and so outside of my comfort zone that my intellect was like, I'm going to take over. And it did.
Right. Totally.
And I remember about mid-month, October, I was like, I'm not intuiting anything in this journey.
Right. Yeah. You start to notice. And like you said, there's certain signs. Like for me, I feel like my nervous system is starting to get like inflamed, and I'm starting to get, like you said, maybe a little anxious, really a lot of thoughts going on, and not like in the flow thoughts, like more chaotic thoughts and many different topics. And then also, I just, it's almost like the outside world is also so loud, and I'm engaging in it too much. And I know, kind of like you said, I need silence. I need to go sit quietly. I need to take care of myself, my own body, my nervous system, and my brain too, I guess. It's an overdrive. So really like sitting in quiet. Also, paying attention to what my body's saying, because likely I have a headache or something as well that comes along with that. And just, there's the sitting quietly, and there's also the energy that's like stuck in my body, or, I'm getting tense. I feel rigid physically sometimes. And I just know and I have to move and be quiet. So those two things, I have to balance it out that way, because when I start to move my body, maybe I'm feeling like kind of irritable, and I notice like, okay, I need to open this up. I need to open up my chest. I need to maybe do some back bends to just start to open myself up to divine flow again, or, just sit there and let my thoughts hash themselves out, and then, just observe, not getting tangled up in them and taking action on them from that place, from this super yang place, like you were saying.
Well, and I definitely think that once you have practices in place that you're integrating into your life, it does become easier to recognize when things are going sideways. Now, that being said, it doesn't always get resolved, like in 2 days. I mean, like I said, it was about 4 months I've been in the situation I'm working through, and I'm grateful for it because I was applying things in the situation as I was going along. It just wasn't enough. It wasn't the right. It wasn't the right movement. And honestly, it wasn't until I started pulling these cards and started asking myself, what is it that you're needing that you're not getting? That I was able to shift out of, I just have to force this forward, into what does the divine want to create through me? And so that's a really good question to be asking yourself whenever you're on some kind of a creative journey.
Yes.
Is what we are all, every one of us, organized to be a voice for the divine if we choose to co-create in that way. We all have intuition. We all have the ability to tap in to those subtler energies.
Right.
The issue that happens, though, is that once you open yourself up to that, you have to have practice in place.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Exactly.
Right. So whether it's meditation practice, whether it's going to yoga, whether it's Tai Chi or Qigong or any other, I mean, there's so many different spiritual practices out there. I'm just calling on the ones that are really, easy at my fingertips here. But so for me, my go-to is breath work, getting on my mat and moving my body in whatever way it needs to be moved, and allowing whatever emotions that are maybe getting tied up or trapped inside of me to move through.
Yes. Yeah.
And then diving into other spiritual practices like card pulling, or utilizing my chakras as a messenger. Okay, what's out of balance? What's going on here? So like,
right.
For me, one of the signs that I've gone completely off the rails is I dive into my addictions, which is food and using words that are not aligned to my truth. So like if I'm complaining versus talking therapeutically with somebody, then that is a sign that my addictions are up. If I'm eating at 9 o'clock at night, that's a sign that everything's up. Like it's really important to be intentional with my energy all the time. And so having practices in place that are going to help me be more intentional with how I care for my body, and that includes my mind.
Yes, the whole thing.
Yeah, that has to be in place. And if it's not in place, then those are usually signs that I'm not in alignment with my co-creation with the divine.
Right. Yeah. And for me, if I have a routine going and, I'm doing what I usually do in the morning, some kind of abstract movement, yoga mixed with dance, maybe, right? Or I do some tapping, full body tapping. When I'm doing that, things are in the flow, but, it's like, then you start to maybe not do that for a day, and then you do it again, but maybe now your mind is like starting up a little bit. So it's like, as I stop doing my routine, that's the perfect time for this type of energy to flare up or creep in, right? So the more you have a personal practice, like you were saying, and the more you are doing things to keep yourself in the flow, that's super important in the first place. Yes. So when I start to notice like, oh, what happened to my routine? Like, I'm starting to feel a little, flared up, or extra, mental chatter is with me. Then that's kind of how I
in charge. Like my intellect is making all the decisions.
Yes.
And so then my mind is very, very, very busy. Yeah.
Right. And then I noticed that, and then I'm like, oh, my routine is in the past now. I need to start that up again. But sometimes I stay in that place and I start to get overwhelmed, and I start to want to force things. They're not working out for me. I'm still trying to do them, whatever. And then it's at that point, then I realize like, I need to do the practices that I know work, but actually I've forgotten them at that point. And I have to reach out to a friend who knows me very well, or, one of my friends, and they'll tell me like, Stacy, remember when you do this thing, what have you done to ground lately? I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. It actually gets to the point where my cute little ego mind makes me forget what to actually do to become grounded and in the flow and co-creating, like you said, with the divine.
And I think that's another topic we'll talk about another day, but the power of sacred community.
Oh yeah.
Like
big time.
that is such an important thing, because that leaning into others, asking for help, being vulnerable, like these are things that are really important to help you stay aligned to your intentions with your self-care, with your mind care, with your soul care. And a lot of times the coaching work that I do, the clients will come in and be like, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I didn't do something else. And I was like, okay, but what did you do? And then they'll tell me what they did. And I'm like, that's great. You accomplished something. It's not about perfection. It's about consistently showing up for your practice. So when working with clients on teaching them how to mindfully move through their lives, you know, they're real eager at the beginning, just like we are with anything that we do. We're real eager at the beginning.
Excited,
and like you said, we kind of get away from it. Something gets in the way. We have something going on. You know, all of this stuff is normal. This is being human. But practice is what we call yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the foundation of my teachings, is from my 20 years of being a yoga practitioner.
Yeah.
And so I approach everything that I'm teaching from that place. It's a practice. So the more that you practice it, the easier it is to access the tool when you need it.
Yes.
And
definitely.
the more aligned you're going to stay to moving your energy forward with intention, with purpose, and in an aligned way. Yes. It's when we get out of that alignment and we start intellectualizing everything that we get to the points that we're talking about. So some of these points that we would suggest paying attention to in your own lives is, okay, when your mind is overly active, like you're waking up in the middle of the night and thinking about something. When you're diving into your addictions, when you are feeling highly emotional and triggered by everything that's going on around you. Like these are really clear signs that something's out of alignment.
Exactly.
How about you? You have, what do you have on that list?
What is on my list for that? Definitely my body. It's almost like I can almost feel the trauma that's trapped there, or, you know, what the input is from my environment. If it's too much and I'm getting overwhelmed, I can literally feel it in my body. And I have to, like, you know, bend over, touch my toes, stretch the back of my thighs. I sometimes, like, it's this feeling where, you know, you want to have a fight or flight response. Like you're the back of my thighs tighten, and it's literally like I want to run away. So sometimes I do run in place, you know, but it's, you know, just the getting away from my routine. Yes, I hear myself speaking differently. I hear my thoughts becoming more negative, and it's okay to have negative thoughts, but you can see the difference, you know?
Right.
And something that you mentioned briefly is, you know, you have your clients acknowledge, like I also do, when they do accomplish things, when they are doing things well, when, you know, they're practicing what you taught them to do. It's super important that we acknowledge things like that. And like, I know you just taught, you know, big workshop on gratitude, to give gratitude for the things that are working, and for basically like to concentrate on what's getting you back into the flow. More of that, more gratitude, more thinking to myself, I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed. I have this friend that can bring me back, and I'm so blessed that I live in such a beautiful city, and blah, blah, blah. So what do you think about that? Like, you know, what's
100%. 100%. I agree to all of it.
Awesome. We're in alignment.
Yay!
Yes. And I was also thinking, I think we mentioned it a little before this call, but, you know, when you're willing something and wanting it to be a certain way and forcing it, basically it comes to a point, if it's really like, you know, really building, it comes to a point. I just planned something that it came from a divine inspiration. I had the best intentions. And then my mind started coming in. Time was getting, you know, it was wearing down to the wire. And I just was like bubbling over, and I was so stressed. I couldn't think about other things. I felt my body, you know, the way it gets. And I just had to surrender and make a choice for it to be not the way I thought it would in the first place. And once I surrendered, I mean, like everything opened up. Suddenly, you know, my partner and I had like 7 different ideas for these workshops that we're going to do. And we started this huge like brain mapping on paper, and we're like, okay, we'll do this one here, and we'll do this one with this person. And, you know, we'll plan this summit and blah, blah, blah. So we had all these amazing ideas. We planned the first 3 quarters of next year, like just from deciding not to do that one thing. It was like all our energy was like dammed up in that, you know, like literally like a dam. And once we let it go, it's just like, vroom. So we became like, we just got back to ourselves, back in co-creation. We feel very inspired now. So the surrender is super powerful in a situation like that, you know?
And I had the same experience. So there was definitely some energy going on in the last week that really just, like, we had this new moon in, I think it was in Scorpio.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So it was a good emotional moon. Not that any moon isn't emotional, because it is the divine feminine, but so the reality is there was definitely some things that were needing to get churned up after the eclipse season, which then led into, okay, are you going to continue this, or are you shifting it?
Right.
And so for me, the shift happened last Friday. I was just like, I walked into a conversation and said, I'm going to be at peace with whatever the outcome is here.
Right.
I'm not holding on to anything.
There's a surrender for you.
Yeah. I'm going to just speak the truth, my truth, and trust in the process.
Yeah.
So the more that we're able to do that, I do believe the more that we can access this ability to recognize, awareness is the very first tool I teach my clients. If you're not aware, you're not going to be able to know where you need to move or what needs to change or anything. So by cultivating awareness, it allows you to then apply the tools as you're able, and then grow it in divine order and time. So I want to be clear that there's no perfectionism in spirituality. There is duality. There is yang, there is yin. It's how are we bringing those two together so that they can support one another? Because there are times that the yin just needs to support the yang, and then there's times that the yang needs to support the yin.
Yeah, it can be a really beautiful co-creation when that happens. But I think, the yang energy, it can be a really beautiful thing, but also it can really go south. It can really take us south. And like you said, to be aware of when that happens in the first place. Like some people, they'll just get stressed, start overthinking, freaking out, and they don't know. They don't even know they're doing it. They just think, this is the way I'm thinking now. They just go on with their lives, freaked out, stressed out, needing a break, needing a retreat, needing a coach. And they just don't come to that conclusion. And when you do realize, you are out of the flow, what do you do at that point? You have to make a choice. So you made a choice. You said, you know what? I'm going to go into this way. However it ends up. That's surrender. I'm just going to make the choice to not do what I thought I was going to do in the first place. And that's surrender. So it's that choice point. Once you realize this isn't working, I'm willing it into action, and it's just not going well,
Absolutely. 100%. I really love this chat because it's in perfect timing.
Same.
So, every time that I land in any situation, whether it's teaching or guiding or receiving or co-creating, it's always exactly what needs to be at the moment. So thank you for, gifting me some of this time so we could talk about this subject. And I hope that what we're doing here is inspiring you to give some attention to your own needs in these areas, and ultimately offering you a place to know that you got a team on your back. That's here to back you up. Let us know. We're happy to help you. Like, we want to have you come and join the group, because there's some pretty magical things that we're going to be doing there together.
Absolutely. Yeah. We're so happy that you joined us. And also, we were supposed to record this last week and it wasn't ready yet. Like, I had to do that big surrender, and here we are now. We're talking about it with a little more wisdom than we had, before this started. So thank you so much, Ramona, for talking about all this with me. We're so excited to provide you with this content, bringing joy forward more and more in your life. And we'd love to see you around. Say hi to us when you can. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
You have been listening to the Bring Joy Forward podcast. Conversations to explore, heal, and grow. You can find us at bringjoyforward.com, and we'd love to have you join us in our community Facebook group. Thank you for listening.